I think we as humans crave the real story of like tenacity and the human experience that someone went through that then triggered the bold move.
Hi, bold movers. Welcome to the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast. I'm excited to speak with the fabulous Erin Fortin today. Erin started her career in a world far removed from creativity, spending her days in a chemistry lab working with high-tech robotics. But in 2018, she made the bold move to trade her lab coat for a camera lens. That's interesting, Erin. Today, Erin is the founder of a successful bi-coastal photography agency with teams and studios operating in both Portland, Oregon, and New York. Her work has helped define the visual identity for brands across the country and has been featured in countless publications. But her story took an unexpected turn recently when a major health emergency brought both her life and business to a sudden halt. She joins us today to open up about leaving the corporate safety net, building a business that can survive without you, and why her message to everyone listening is simply don't wait. Hello, Erin. Welcome to the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for that intro, Kristen. I'm so happy to be here.
I can't wait to get into this story. You do have such an important lesson to share from a, dramatic, tragic event. So that's really where I want to start this conversation with you today, Erin. It's a moment that changed everything for you, I would assume. And I'd love to hear about that in your own words. So can you take us back to where you were in your life before that run and what happened that day?
Of course. Okay, so it was July of 2024, last summer. I have been running my photography business. We're a multi-brand bi-coastal. We've got studios, like you said, in Portland, Oregon, Saratoga Springs, and New York City. I have associate photographers in each location or myself shooting. And business was great. My kids are healthy and happy, and they're in elementary school, and my relationship with my partner is strong. I've been a runner my whole life. And my husband and I were out on a trail run that morning. And fortunately, we were only 5 minutes into the run when everything went black. Mid-stride, everything went black. I lost my vision. I grabbed for my husband. He thought I saw a bear because we were trail running. He's like, is there something around? And I said, Brian, I can't see. I can't see anything anymore. And I remember looking down at my hands and I couldn't see my hands. And that's when the headache started pounding immediately. And Brian started he kind of carried me back home. And that's when the nausea, the vomiting, and then ultimately the confusion set in. And I wasn't really making any sense. I wasn't remembering serious family events that had recently happened in my extended family. And Brian then just Googled, he said, confusion, headache, vomiting. And he saw, oh my God, those are the signs of a stroke. And so he packed me up in the car. We went straight to the ER, and they took one look at me, put me in the wheelchair, and rolled me straight into the MRI and the CAT scan. And that's when they confirmed I had suffered a stroke.
That is unbelievable. I mean, you were by all intents and purposes healthy. I mean, young, right?
Yeah,
This isn't
37.
something you normally hear about in somebody 37 years old. What did you learn about the event, after the trauma of it?
Yes. This is why I speak so openly about it, because it's so important for us in the human experience to realize the thing I learned is that 1 in 4 of us are born with holes in our heart. It's called a PFO. And I had a PFO ASD, which means part of my heart didn't completely close after birth and while I continued to grow. And the hole was so large that no pediatrician or doctor ever heard it because there was no murmur to be heard. It just was this huge hole in my heart. So for 37 years of my life, I was a walking stroke risk. A stroke happens when you either have an aneurysm and a blood vessel breaks in your brain, or if you throw a clot up into your brain and it forms a clot and then you can't get oxygen to your brain and you have a stroke. So for me, I love talking about this as someone who's never been a smoker, never been a drug user, marathon running, healthy, like I was vegetarian half my life person. Heart disease doesn't care who you are. It doesn't discriminate. You can be healthy and make life choices. I think we all love to give ourselves peace in our health, thinking like, oh, strokes only happen to really, really unhealthy, overweight, or super old people. But the truth is it could come for any of us. And I
Mhm.
think I saved my own life by being healthy leading up to the stroke. I was probably destined to have a stroke. I was a ticking time bomb. But I think the important thing to share and to absorb, like what I talk about with all my friends, is like, we all get baseline mammograms when we're in our 40s. You know, men have their prostate exams, we do colonoscopies, we have baseline health, right? But what about our hearts? We should advocate for baseline heart care and find yourself a cardiologist, get a scan of your heart, start to like care about the baseline of your heart.
It really is so interesting that you hear about preventative measures on almost every other part of your body, but you
Yeah.
don't actually hear about how you can learn more about your heart. I am so sorry that happened to you and relieved that you are now on the other side of this and can share your experiences with everyone. What does that traumatic event now give you the perspective in knowing? So when you were in, your recovery process, and as you were probably spending a lot of time processing what happened, did you find that your priorities and your view was changing? What kind of philosophy did you come up with at that time to then live by in the subsequent years of your life? I mean, did that happen for you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, first off, it's like a lightning bolt, right? I was sitting in the MRI getting scanned and tears were streaming down my face. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what if this is it? You know, what if I don't get to see my kids again? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that puts such perspective instantaneously about how little work stress matters. You know, that puts perspective as to like how much your health is everything. And if you don't prioritize your health, and if you wait and delay because you have any sort of insecurity or trepidation or lack of confidence, you're only hurting your own dreams and your own life. We get one life here, and you don't know. We don't get a say. We don't get a vote as to when and where and how we go. So do it now. Do it scared. Don't wait.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
So
like my reality as I recovered is fearlessly step into the room, take space, don't wait to do the things you want to do.
usually, when we talk about bold moves on the show, there's a risk component to it, right? Financial risk. You mentioned some of those limiting beliefs that feel also risky, like, am I going to fail? I
Mhm.
wonder though, did facing this life and death situation change your definition on risk? I mean, did it put your risk barometer higher than it was previously?
That's really interesting. To be honest, I don't know if it's the youngest child in me, but I have been, or maybe the being raised by two extremely supportive and confident parents, but I have just had the privilege of the personality trait of fearlessly, naively stepping confidently in the direction of my dreams with like throwing caution to the wind and knowing that, you know, if I fail, it's okay because I've got a strong support system.
Mm,
So maybe that's why my risk tolerance is high because I have the
mm,
privilege of
mhm.
a lot of support in my life.
All right. I want to take the perspective you have now that, life is short, your philosophy of don't wait, and look back on your first major bold move. So, we're going to start getting into your bold move story. You
Yeah.
spent years in this very different world. You have a PhD in chemistry, but now you're a
Mhm.
photographer. So, obviously, there was a transition. So, and it's funny because when I first heard about your job at Intel working with robots, I think my
Mhm.
mouth was on the floor. I did not really understand what that meant. You said to me, I
Yeah.
sit in front of robots all day. And I was like, what? What does that even mean? I mean, I really had to have you walk me through that. So actually take us back to what you were going to do with your career when you first started, and then the transformation moment. What happened
Mhm.
and how did you get into photography?
Yes. Okay. Well, I was in grad school at the University of Colorado. Go Buffs. That's where my husband Brian and I met. And when you're in grad school, it is like stinky chemistry lab all day, every day. And so I had a moment my first year of grad school where a lot of my friends were exploring right brain activities to kind of fulfill the other side of our brains, and to do things outside of the lab, to have hobbies and fulfilling things, interests outside of the lab. And that's when I bought my first camera. I thought, I want to get into photography. This might be kind of fun. I took a photography class in college and absolutely loved it. My dad gifted me his film Canon AT1 35 millimeter camera when I was in college. So I just thought, I want to pick up a camera gear, but if I do anything, I go like all in on it. So I bought a $500 camera, but then I started taking all the camera classes at that camera shop, multi-week classes. I started shadowing professionals just to kind of understand the technique and to learn how to be a photographer. And then fast forward to post-defense, I graduated with my PhD. I started working at Intel as a robot engineer. Technically, it's called a process engineer for those in the semiconductor industry. And, as I was sitting there at my robot coding one day, I just was like, I remember pushing my laptop away from me, the keyboard away from me, being like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to work with people. I don't want to sit in this clean room coding a robot every day. So I came up with a plan for how I was going to leave. And then that took some time, like a couple of weeks for perspective, and then made the decision together with Brian and went to my boss and said, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. I'm happy to stick around. I'm not in a rush. I'm happy to hire my replacement, train them, but I'm going to go and start this photo biz.
All right, let's back up to you sitting all day in front of a robot coding, because in my mind, and I think I said this when we first talked, I'm getting movie vibes, or Severance, or I don't know. I'm in this white room by myself in front of a very sterile environment, just coding all day by myself. I mean, were you even talking to other people in this environment?
Okay, so Intel's clean rooms are, if you want to visualize, let's start big and narrow down. These clean rooms are the size of multiple football fields. So envision multiple football fields all stacked together inside, and it is bright white. It is very sterile. There are robots zooming overhead, and there are rows upon rows upon rows of hundreds of robots. And these robots are the size of like a one-car garage. If you want to visualize, like one-car garages all the way down. Yeah. And as a process engineer, you're responsible for multiple robots. So you're kind of in charge of making sure that they're processing the wafers the way they need to. And whenever they misprocess a wafer, which is all the time, you're also responsible for that.
Yeah. And you were telling me you got calls all the time. I mean, day and night, like in the middle of the night, if your robot had a glitch, then you would have to go in sometimes and fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's kind of seeming like a little isolating, not very personable. So I can see how you are starting to feel like, this isn't for me anymore. I thought I wanted this, but now I don't. And I think so many people can relate to that feeling. And I like to call it Erin's seasons. I love capturing that way, because I don't ever think we make a wrong decision. I just think that we follow our instinct and our logic for a season, and we try it. And then maybe it's, it doesn't work out. We have another calling that is speaking or whispering to us that it's time for a directional shift. And that's what it sounds like happened to you. How long were you in that job before you decided to make your pivot?
Mm-hmm. I was a process engineer for 2 years, and then kind of took a lateral shift at Intel into supply chain engineering, which I learned a lot of negotiation skills from being a supply chain engineer. And then that's when I left. So I was at Intel for 5 years before going full-time EFP.
The other thing I love about this too is you do gain some valuable experiences that help you make the leap and do whatever it is next. I mean, we often think that skills aren't transferable, but that's not the reality. So let's talk about your transition to the photography business. But that moment of decision making, when you went to your husband, you said, I want to leave, you admitted it out loud, which sometimes can be even scary in itself. How did you put the plan together tactically, for people who are listening and just trying to figure out, I have this whisper calling just like Erin, and now I want to figure out how I can make a game plan. What did the game plan look like for you?
Yes, the game plan was I had built up a savings for myself. So I started the business while I still had the full time 9 to 5. So
Mm,
all of my income from my 9 to 5, I was essentially bucketing for myself so that I would have a runway, knowing full well in myself that it may take me 6 months, 12 months, 24 months to start a successful photography business that is profitable, that is paying myself well. And my goal has always been to shatter the glass ceiling that corporate America kept on me. So I've always wanted to earn more than what I earned at Intel. And I just knew, of course, that's going to take years, right? I'm always working towards the next big goal in business, but I tactically knew, okay, Erin, you had a runway of X amount of months to pay yourself. And then I just started back calculating. I sort of reverse engineered how I knew what my expenses are for my business to run. And then I knew what I wanted realistically to be earning in terms of business, in terms of clients. Like, how many clients a month can I handle? How many clients a month am I realistically actually going to have in the first 12 months of this business? And I kind of reverse engineered the costs there to see, is this even a viable business plan? Like, is this going to work for me? And I told myself, Erin, you have 2 years to make this business profitable. And if it's not, you can always go back. You can always fall back. So I kind of had that privileged mindset of like, you can always go back. You can fall back on your degree. You can go back. Um, but then, something happens around year 2 or 3 where you're like, wow, I am deep in this,
mm,
and corporate world has changed so much. And then the pandemic hits,
mm.
and I'm like, I don't think I could go back. So now I really got to make this work.
Really got to commit. Okay, I want to pick out a few things you said in your transition plan that bold movers listening can apply, which is you defined your goal before you left your job. I think that's really an important piece. You said I wanted to shatter the glass ceiling. And so that was always kind of your North Star goal that you had in mind, and then started to build the plan, I guess the business plan from there, from that level of like, if I want to achieve this, this is what needs to happen. And so you had that built out before you ended up making the leap. I'm curious though, you said something like, I'm going to make this work, but you have never run a photography business before. So really, you don't have a roadmap. How did you get the information you needed to make a plan for this bold move?
You want to know a secret?
Yes.
I literally just figured it out on the fly. I had no clue what I was doing, but I am foolishly and naively like confident in myself, right? Like, I am not
Mhm.
going to be the best photographer in the whole world. I'm not going to be the strongest and best businesswoman in the whole world, but I am deeply content in who I am, what I do, how I serve my people, and how I live my life. And so I thought, like, well, just like screw around and find out, like, see what you can do. I will say, and I will admit that I have had some really great counsel in my life from my sister. She's an MBA, and my dad, who is a consultant and also a business owner. So when I told Brian was my safety net when I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave Intel and start this photo biz. And he's like, I love you. Like, we can live off of one salary if EFP is a total flop, but it's not going to be because you're awesome. So, like, let's go. But when I finally told my dad, my parents, and my sister and brother, they were like, cool, how can we support you? And dad's like, this is what you need to know about running numbers and the accounting of a business and how do you run the numbers. And my sister literally came over with a notebook and was like, let's strategize your launch campaign. So I had a lot of great counsel, and I've continued to have great counsel. My best friend Kelsey is an MBA from Wharton, and she has sat down with me, and I have countless notes in my phone from her, from like Kelsey brainstorming sessions. So I think you just support yourself and your business aspirations by the company you keep.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That is going to be critical to people making a transition. And through all of these interviews, I think I've done 60 at this time interviews of people making bold moves, and also experts in their field to help listeners understand the mindset challenges that a lot of people have. And I created a Bold Moves recipe, and the middle layer of the Bold Moves recipe is who. And it's really important because I've heard this from so many different people, and you couch it as counsel. Other people have talked about it as community they've built, but it's this
Mhm.
network of people that support you and that you can brainstorm with, or maybe they can open a door for you. So it is about, who are you surrounded by in this moment of transition, not just in the moment of transition, but also throughout your
Forever.
journey that keep building you up. Because one of my former guests, Robin Woods, talked to me about the difference between supporters and elevators. And supporters are important, but then you also need the elevators, the people in your life who maybe know more than you and can help you get to that next level. That's also equally important. And you spoke a lot about confidence. So let me key in there and ask you some questions about confidence, which is really interesting because for listeners, the very last episode, I talked to confidence coach Simone Canego all about confidence. So if you feel like you need a boost of confidence, go back and listen to that episode. Confidence is a big key here to making a bold move, right? How have you thought about that in terms of it fueling your journey? Do you have moments of self doubt, and how do you counteract that?
Oh my gosh, I was literally talking about that while getting ready for bed 2 nights ago with my husband. Like,
Okay.
we were talking about how in business, in my profession with EFP, I go through waves of having a lot of confidence and having insecurity, having lack of confidence perhaps. I find that I become more confident when I'm staying in my lane, when I know what I'm good at, and I continue to serve that purpose and that mission. But when things kind of slow down in business, that's when I start looking around a little more and I see, oh, wow, that photographer's killing it. Or like, man, I look at numbers and I'm like, oh, I could have done more. And I beat myself up a little bit. But what happens when I am busy and when I
Mhm.
am working hard, I I have the confidence to know that, oh, I got this, right? And so for me to be able to maintain that level of confidence more consistently, that's when I lean back on the things that I'm really good at. And that's when I step into my lane and strategize more for EFP, focus on EFP. There's this expression of like, create more than you consume. And
Mhm.
I think that's a really
Yes.
important thing in business. Like, you just have to confidently, fearlessly create, especially as an artist, as a photographer, like create way more than you step back and sit back and consume and scroll all day.
There was an in and out list a few years back, and
Yeah.
this was a thing on my in list: create more than I consume. Because, yes, getting distracted is easy to get, in my experience, sucked into the comparison game when I'm just
Exactly.
scrolling all day or looking at what other people are doing. And if I
Hmm.
just focus on my time and attention on what I'm
Yes.
doing, I get more into my flow state and then I feel more
Hmm.
confident. So I think that's such a great point. All right, so you've made the leap into Erin Fortin Photography, EFP, as you call it. Started in Portland, opened, I believe, a photography studio there, and then started building. What did you learn in that first year of business that you've now carried forward with you as you've grown?
Ooh, ooh, I know. That's a really good question. I learned in that first year that when you serve others with heart, when you actually are just in it to help other people, happy clients will make happy clients. So I care a lot more about making sure that my photos are helping your business grow and your brand stand out authentically, personally, professionally, and represent the actual reputation and brand that you have built truly. That means that I've done my job well. And if I haven't, then it's not. In photography, it's not transactional for me. It is so much more. It is, how is your business going to grow from this? How are you going to step into your business's authority when you're networking, when you're showing up online, when you're marketing yourself? um, Helping others and serve, like coming from a place of serving others first, is something that I started the business with and continue to do today because of it. Because it's like, good business makes good business.
Yes, I love that, the relational aspect. And I think very much for
Mhm.
me, as I pivoted into my consulting, that was really the heart of it. I felt like in my full-time job, it was like very transactional, and I wanted to be more relational. So I relate to what you're saying, just trying to create more stronger relationships that don't always have to be about what did you do for me today, but the human
Yeah.
part of it as well. As you now have grown this business, you're bi-coastal, as we talked about before,
Mhm.
serving both Portland and New York and Saratoga and also New York City. So there was a
Mhm.
move involved somehow. How did you decide? So you moved. Okay, so we need to learn about
Mhm.
that. But then how
Yeah.
did you decide not to close Portland to actually expand into New York? What was that like? Take us through those moments, because that's a skill conversation now. You've started the business, you've grown it in Portland, and now there's a life transformation coming into play, and you're like, this is another decision making point. So yeah, share that with us.
Thanks. Okay, so I started EFP in Portland, Oregon, right? In 2022, my family, my nuclear pod, my husband, and our two daughters decided to move to New York because we wanted to be closer to family and we were ready for a new adventure. And so I think the natural thought in a photography business would be like, okay, close up studio here, start a photography business in the new state. And that's like, as a business owner and you're a solopreneur, you can kind of do that. But the thing is my book of clients, my recurring and revolving clients that I have in Portland, Oregon are incredible. Portland, Oregon businesses, shout out to them. They are a very cool and special breed. And I've just grown with these businesses over the years. And I know their founders, I know their children, I know their staff, I know their story and their why. I know how personal their heart has poured into their business. So the thought of me just being like, all right, we'll see you. Good luck with your marketing. Even that thought made me take a pause and think this isn't the right decision for them. So how can I continue to help them when I physically am gone? So that's when I started talking to my photography friends. My closest of friends in Portland were and continue to be fellow photographers who are absolutely killing it in their businesses. And I leaned on them and I asked, like, hey, is there a world where I could hire you? Would you like to work as like an associate photographer and shoot for me, an EFP, on my behalf? And structurally, how I built that business model was, hey, I will hire you as an associate. You'll get paid as an associate photographer, but then all you have to do is show up to the shoot and execute the photos. But I do all the pre-shoot planning, all the strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and then they send me their raw images and then I edit and deliver to the client. So it's still, from a client perspective, they're still getting that white glove customer service from me, from Erin specifically, but now they get to shoot with two other photographers who are frankly just like technically incredibly better photographers than I could ever be. Like, they're hire people who are better than you and then get out of their way. Like, that's another thing Intel taught me, actually.
It's true. As business owners, we can't be great at everything, although we're asked to do everything. So find the things that you aren't the best at and delegate those to people who are better than you. That's great advice.
Delegate.
So
Yeah.
you moved to New York, and you
Mhm.
decided to open another studio there, and now you've been working with clients from the East Coast to the West Coast, and
Mhm.
and then you had this health event. So circling back, because now we're in the moment, right, where you're in New York and this health event happens to you. And how long did this take you out of the game in terms of running your business, right? Because there's a recovery process. What did that look like? And how did you manage the business while going through this challenge?
Oh, man. I had the stroke in July of 2024. I was on medical leave until February of 2025.
Mm,
I was gone from EFP for 6 months. And the reason why EFP continued to serve as expected, deliver as expected, and the business has even come out stronger on the other end, is because of the power of the systems I had built
mm,
leading up to that medical emergency and and the real like power that comes from delegating and trusting your team. So I was in the hospital. I called Nate, my associate photographer in Portland, and I told him what happened. And he said, Erin, literally say no more. Don't even think about it. I will get every file that I need to edit and deliver to our clients. I will reschedule. I will cancel and refund. I will manage everything for you. I'll figure out passwords and everything through the means that I need to, and I'll figure it out. And so I just am so lucky to have had such a strong team leading up to that.
You spoke about the systems you built. That's critical. What systems did you build that helped you keep things running in the background?
Okay, so for example, so in my line of work as a brand photographer, I have client onboarding calls, right? Our consult calls. And then I do strategy and design prep for all of our commercial brand photo shoots. And then I have scheduling of the actual photo shoot itself. I have communication after the photo shoot and leading up to it, reminder emails and confirmations of where you have to be when, styling advice, shot list, mood board, all that information and communication that goes into your brand strategy. Touch points afterwards, and then the gallery delivery and communication thereafter. All of that is automated in my business through the power of different platforms that I use. So for example, I have Squarespace for email messaging. I've got Acuity scheduling for all of the calendar scheduling, communication, things like that. And I have templates that I use in place for starting out the bare bones of a strategy for a photo shoot. And then I populate there within based on the deep dive that I do for each brand to kind of understand their personality.
Yes, I see that there are templates and processes in place. So you're not starting custom for every client. You actually have this whole already defined process that you are operating from. So when something happens and you have to take a step back, you can entrust others to also run that same process.
A lot of it's automated, so it can like automatically send out ahead of time.
As we move to concluding our interview today, Erin, I want to take us to this full circle moment, at least in my mind, as an objective viewer of your story. You ended up in Gloria Steinem's living room recently. Wow. That is a moment, a moment of a lifetime, I would feel, right? And to support a very close to my heart and close to your heart nonprofit, She's the First. You were photographing an event for them, and it happened to be in Gloria Steinem's living room. Can you take us into that room? I'd love to hear how that moment felt for you and what it signifies about the bold moves that you've made. It really did catapult you to this experience.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking such a thoughtful question. It was a totally surreal experience. And I am so grateful for Tammy Tibbetts, who started She's the First, the founder of this incredible nonprofit we both are so like passionate about and supportive of. And I'm so grateful that she spoke my name in the company that she keeps. And I'm so grateful that she called me. I mean, she sent me a text months before the evening and said, Erin, we're having this event. There's no one else I want to have there with us capturing this evening. Will you please block your calendar? Can you be available? And I said, oh yeah, let me just check. Like, it's free. And getting to step into that room and be with Gloria and be with the powerhouse humans that were in the living room having that conversation was so profound, because up until the 70s, women weren't even allowed to take out business lines of credit to start their own businesses. I wouldn't have the business without having to co-sign without a man. I mean, that's just one small example of the power and impact of Gloria's life and legacy. And I know that I wouldn't be the business owner I am today if it wasn't for Gloria, but also if it wasn't for Tammy and her pulling me in. So that was really surreal. But I will tell you what, her living room, if you want to visualize this gorgeous piece of art that is her living room, it is stunning. It is eclectic. It is cultured. It is well-traveled. It is a photographer's nightmare. This room is difficult to photograph. It was the challenge of a lifetime to photograph it well. And with the integrity and the brain power and the impact of the women in that room, I knew I needed to bring my A+ game. And I studied, I
Mm,
researched, I spoke with my team in Portland. I strategized my lighting game to be able to deliver technically
mm,
with excellence that night because that was everything they deserved. And I'm
mm.
really proud of the photos I created because of it.
Erin, your story is the ultimate proof that we can't predict the future and we have to build the life we want now. For the listener who is waiting for next year or when things settle down or when I have enough money, enough time, maybe they're a mom and it's just kind of chaotic right now. What do you want to say to them about making their bold move?
Don't wait. Don't wait. Don't wait. Chase fearlessly, recklessly. Don't know what you're doing. That's okay. Don't wait to chase the things that are on your heart. Ask for help along the way. They say if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, ask for help. I think
Mm,
asking for help and support
I love
is
that.
powerful.
I have one final question I ask all of my guests. For us bold movers that are inside of our bold move, so we've made the leap, what is one piece of advice you have to keep our momentum going and our courage going when the initial excitement fades and the real work begins, and also the realities of life, as you've so clearly defined, come into play that we can't expect?
Stay inspired. Stay inspired by your community of people who are absolutely crushing it along the way. Find bold movers, find people who like this podcast, this community, your Substack that you've created, Kristen, like following your work on LinkedIn and your network of people. I'm inspired by your bold movers that you have brought onto this podcast, and I am inspired by my fellow photographer best buddies and my associate photographers. I'm inspired by their work and their art. Stay inspired by the company you keep.
Well, I have to say, Erin, you inspire me, and I'm adding you to my list of the company I keep because you're just amazing. So much to learn from you. I appreciate you being here on the Bold Moves How Did You Know podcast today. Where can listeners find your work, check out your studios, connect with you to go deeper with you, Erin?
Thank you. It's been such a joy and a privilege to be here. People, I'm very active on Instagram. You can find me at Erin Fortin Photo, and you can find my website at erinfortinphotography.com.
Thank you so much again for being here, Erin, and to everybody else. Keep on with your bold moves. We'll see you inside the next one. Bye for now.